Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Saturday morning show. And today, Kerin and I are going to be talking about setting up a tenancy and really just run through pretty much a blueprint for that hassle-free rental, basically. And that's ultimately what everybody wants, whether you're a landlord, investor, or a tenant, or even a letting agent. We just want it all to run very smoothly and everybody be happy. And to be honest, nothing affects the smooth running of your tenancy more than how it's set up at the beginning. I'm sure you'll stand testament to that, Kerin.
Very much so. We've moved in lots of people, and obviously referencing and the initial process is key to, as you say, a smooth tenancy.
Yeah, and I think although maintenance and repairs and things are obviously inevitably all part of owning a rental property, most other tenant issues can be avoided with the proper preparation. Preparation is key, and it does apply here very much so. In fact, whenever we meet landlords with tenancy problems, we could usually trace it back to before the tenants even moved in, from possibly the marketing, as you said, Kerin, the referencing, and the whole handover of the property and the keys and things as well. That whole process, it's quite a fine, it's quite finite, and you could get it very wrong or very right. I think that's quite hard to do it somewhere in between. So yeah, with that all in mind, we kind of pulled together some info that's going to really be quite a good blueprint, and all the things that you really need to attract and retain the ideal tenant and get the legals right and protect your time, your investment. And to do that, we're going to cover a few topics this morning. So, getting your rental property ready for rent is really important. That effective marketing strategy and property marketing, screening and referencing, I'm sure you'll give us a lot into that, Kerin, this morning. The perfect paperwork, procedures, and then that smooth check-in and those regular checkups and inspections throughout. So, what are you going to say, Kerin?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it anyway.
Yeah, there is. But that's why I think sometimes it could feel very overwhelming for people.
Mm-hmm.
And not just to obviously be quite biased about, obviously we are letting agents, but we know what goes in to the day-to-day and the setup and the whole process from start to finish. And it's quite a lot. And unless you want to take on a full-time job doing lettings, then you really should have a letting agent doing the most of it for you. I think especially nowadays, because of the amount of legislation and red tape and things you need to think about and how things should be approached correctly, there's a lot out there, and you don't really need to have that burden on you and that stress and have that hanging over you. Some people do it and enjoy it and they choose to do it as a job, and that's fine. I think if you're trying to do it as an investment in addition to your income from your job, it's quite a hard thing to juggle. So we're going to start with one of the most important things, and it's setting up a tenancy correctly. And it's a really intricate and it's quite a demanding task as well, Kerin. I'm sure you'll guide us through that. But the guide today is really created to kind of help you try and streamline and have a confident process and have confidence in your process and have that really rewarding and remarkably smooth buy-to-let business. And it can be done. So yeah, kick us off this morning, Kerin, and give us a rundown about getting your rental property ready.
So impeccable presentation is the first step to attracting a high quality tenant. By setting a strict standard to upkeep and showcase your professional side, you'll naturally filter out the best from the rest, which is quite a good way to put it. So obviously we've said before, the better property you put out, the better quality of tenant that you're going to attract from it. The people that are going to look after it are not going to want to stay in a home that's tired, worn, imperfections that you can see here, there and everywhere. So ensure your rental home is spotless with professional deep clean, fresh and neutral decor, and detailed check that appliances are working and they're all in order. I'd say smell's quite a key one out of there as well. Obviously, first impressions, if like maybe your tenants had pets previously or they've smoked in the property, these are all things that can quite easily put people off. Or even if there's maybe like a bit of a damp smell in there as well. So that key odorless smell, or even a nice smell, hopefully. I had one just last week, and the owner had been baking previously, and the house smelled gorgeous. And we managed to achieve a higher rental for it. So not that I'll say it was down to the smell. It was a gorgeous home in general, but it definitely helped.
Okay.
Completing all essential repairs and maintenance are obviously key as well. If your property is already occupied, see how much you can do before your existing tenant is moving out, just to forecast any changeover that you're going to have to do.
Yeah, that's quite an important one as well, because we do have that quite a lot where properties come to the market or come back to the market. They've got people in place. You're trying to do that changeover where you've got as less or hardly any void period as possible. So in order to do that, you need to try and do things while the other person or tenant is still in situ.
And a key one for whilst a tenant's in situ is obviously keeping up to date with your property safety certificates. So maintaining them, keeping them up to date, your gas safety, your electrical installation, your EICR, your energy performance certificate, along with working smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors where required by law as well.
Yeah.
So again, these are all things that you should be doing during a tenancy anyway, but if there is obviously any scope that they need renewed in between tenancies, make sure you're doing it, because you can't move a tenant into the property until all those safety certificates are completed. So this is essential effort which significantly impacts your property's value and tenant satisfaction from day one and minimises any future issues by offering a safe, legally compliant and attractive home.
Yeah, and these are the main things, and you need to think about that to have the property ready. And we've seen it time and time again over the years where properties are expected to just be re-let, and they've maybe had tenants in there for quite a long time, or a multitude of things where it's like, no, there has to be certain things that are addressed here to bring this back up to the standard to attract the same tenants as what it looked like for the tenants when they first moved in, especially when it's family homes and you've got longer periods of tenancies. I mean, the average tenancy is running about 4 years minimum now, and that's jumped up quite a lot. So tenants are staying longer in properties, so there's going to be a lot more wear and tear. So you need to think of that changeover point. Like, there's going to be things you're going to need to do to maintain the standard of finish and things that you want to put out to attract the best tenants, as you say. And then that's when it brings us to, you've got it already, and it looks all so nice, but then you really need to put it out there, and to attract those good, really good tenants, you need to have that really effective marketing strategy and effective property marketing. Now, marketing rental homes has really evolved quite a lot. It's evolved a lot in the past 10 years or so, and even in the last few years, just with social media and things as well, with a really multifaceted approach. It's now essential to really cover a kind of diverse tenant searching pattern, if that makes sense. So you also need to meet like the new trading standards rules with your advert, and a lot of these, I see a lot of adverts online, and I think, God, that's not right. And there's certain things missing that are really should be included there. So I think first and foremost is photography. I mean, use professional photography to showcase your property in its best features. I mean, we've got quite nice properties that we do even sometimes even do some drone footage and things for rentals, because they're in such an idyllic location, whether that be countryside, seaside and things, and it makes all the difference to the kind of people that you attract. And it really picks up on those best features as well as the location. I'm sure you'll agree with that, Kerin. We've had a few of them that's turned out really nice.
Yeah, definitely. If you've got one in that nice, like you say, that nice idyllic area, it's good to be able to showcase that and people can see what kind of area the property's set in.
Yeah, and that's from a visual aspect. And then it's always good to pair that with a really compelling description that actually highlights the benefits of living there, not just about the property, but about what's in the surrounding area. What are the benefits of living there, whether it be transport links, access to the beach, access to schools, good bars or restaurants close by, or all of the above. If that's all there, get it all in there and make sure that it's clear and quite descriptive, but not too long-winded. I do think that, I mean, sales and lettings, they are different descriptions, but then I do feel that sometimes lettings needs to be quite compact as opposed to sales. And I've seen some sales listings that could go on, and I think it's a bit overkill. But but then that all comes with the skill of a good agent. and they should be able to highlight all those key factors and points and keep it quite precise and to the point. And that's what you're looking for to accompany those professional photographers. And that's where it comes to choosing a letting agent who lists on using this listing technique, and then lists on all the major platforms, which will really get you the best reach. Now, that's not just in, I know the big platforms like Zoopla and Rightmove and things, but look at your letting agent's own website. Do you know how much time do they spend on that website and adapting that, and can they actually demonstrate to you what kind of reach they have on their website and what kind of people they're attracting and where from, especially in places like, well, we're here in Fife, we have St Andrews, we have East Neuk, we've got all these places, and these all appeal to overseas as well, not just, you know, so you need to think, I mean, I may be coming in the realms of sales as well with marketing, but it is all relevant, and definitely the marketing for the property on their own website is very important. So, and if you ask your agent, they should be able to go through that with you. And of course, as well, in this day and age, social media and how engaging their social media platforms are. Are they doing social media promotion for your property and the area that it's in? And just things like that, that's all going to, I mean, especially if you're looking for, let's say, students or working professionals and things, they are going to be very much social media driven. Possibly won't even look at the website. They'll probably just do social media. So if your agent has no social media platform or marketing strategy, you're probably missing a big portion of the audience that you're trying to attract. I mean, I'm sure you would agree with that, Kerin.
Definitely. Obviously, as we're evolved through different generations, each generational pool, we have a different way in which they'll look for properties. I mean, obviously, you're a lot older type tenants might have even been able to find properties in newspapers back in the day. So it's obviously like it's evolved over time, and you need to make sure you're with an agent that is evolving with the times, like you say, keeping up to date with not only the websites, but the social media aspect of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is as well, there's new trading standard rules and things as well with online listings, and it could get right down to the nitty gritty of like the construction types, like utility connections, and potentially some adverse qualities and things as well. So you need to think about what's all included in there and being very transparent and not kind of misdescribe the property as well. You can't be talking about something about in the property that's not actually there, or because it's a complete misdescription, and will have you fall into that realm of not advertising the property as it actually is, and that could be a tricky business to get yourself out of, and you shouldn't really be doing it in the first place anyway, especially if you're a reputable agent. So
I mean, we've seen agents that have had properties up and it said it's actually someone just a few weeks ago, and it was like detached house. I'm like, that's a masonette, that's not a house.
Yeah,
and it's just knowing your property types.
Yeah, and I know sometimes in some areas, the build type and things of properties, or the build style, is quite difficult. And properties are all bunched together, but they're not quite. It's not quite a terraced, and sometimes it could be a link detached, or there's different types and things as well. But if you're not sure, go and find out rather than just say it's this.
Yeah, just guessing.
Yeah, so. Yeah, be very careful with that, and be very careful and orchestrate, your promotional campaign. It does draw in the best inquiries, really right there from the outset. It ensures your property is seen by the right people, that target audience. It reduces void periods, and ultimately it helps you secure a great tenant and quite quickly as well, rather than this long drawn out process, which it shouldn't really be if you've got everything in place properly. And then that brings us to finding that tenant, Kerin. And what do we do with when we've obviously advertised the property and we have these great potential tenants coming through on the inquiries? What do we do? I mean, screening them, referencing them, and things. That's in fact, it's a really important part of the process.
It is, and there's a lot that goes into it. And I mean, we've met with landlords over the years that have maybe been doing it themselves for a long time, and then obviously they're maybe considering that change over to the managed side. They want more time to themselves. So, and when we cover what we do for the referencing process, they're like, oh, I've not been doing any of that. And it's like, well, no wonder you've not had the best experience. So there's a lot that goes into it, and you have to make sure that you are following the necessary steps for it, because it's such an important part, and it's really tricky as well if you have the wrong tenant in to be able to get them out of the property. So you can't give 100% guarantee every time, unfortunately, that it's just life, but there's lots of steps that you can take to try and minimize any risk for a problematic tenancy. And obviously your referencing is such a key point in that. So no landlord wants any unsuitable or unreliable tenants, but it is remarkable how so many have frighteningly inadequate vetting processes in place. There are 2 stages for vetting for everyone and every rental property, but the first one is universally ignored, with the second often performed at a surprisingly lax standard. So here's some tips on how to do it right. Whenever anyone asks to view, have a few questions ready about what they're looking for and whether they're going to be a suitable fit for your property and your property's timescale as well. So that's obviously quite a key point there, just doing that initial kind of pre-qualifying stage, if you like, just to make sure they've got that initial compatibility for it. And this is something that we obviously put a lot of time into. We have a lot of people that apply for our properties. So this is a good stage in making sure that they've got the right income, the right amount of people are going to be staying in the property. It's not going to be overcrowded. The income matches what's required for that property. And again, the timescale there is an important one. Obviously, we don't have any fixed terms in Scotland. The leases are on effectively a month-to-month basis. The tenant only has to give 28 days notice to be able to move out of the property, so they can effectively move in and move out again the next month. So establishing what someone's timescale is like is going to be quite important. Are they looking for just maybe a quick turnaround? Are they looking for a long-term tenancy that's going to take you for a few years? It is a good question to be asking people. So obviously, again, it's a bit of a how long is a piece of string. You can't make 100% guarantees, but at least if you have somebody that their expectation is long-term, you should hopefully get a longer-term tenancy out of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's our job to try and establish that. Like I said, on average, tenancies are around about 4 years now, but some could be a lot shorter, and some could be a lot longer. And we could establish to the best of our ability whether somebody intends to stay, if they're here working and want something for a couple of years, they want something to settle for, the medium to long term, so they're going to be maybe 4 or 5 years, or they're just maybe looking for something for a year. We could establish that, but we can't hold them to it.
Exactly. So after you have agreed with a suitable tenancy for the let, run credit checks on the tenant's financial status and get at least 3 months bank statements to see how they manage their money. So again, you can have somebody, their credit check is fine, you get a bank statement and they're severely living in their overdraft, or there's just some, ultimately we're not here to judge what people spend their money on. It's just, can you manage it suitably? Are you paying your bills? Are you paying your current rent? Are you sitting massively in your overdraft? Do you have credit cards you're paying back? So all these different things to keep a wee eye out for there as well.
Yeah.
Verifying somebody's income, their employment is also key. It gives you their availability to meet the rental payments and approach previous landlords for their payment record and property care as well. So making sure that they've looked after the property, that they've paid the rent on time each month, there's no arrears outstanding, and if they would rent to them again is quite important things to ask there. Now, one of my tips here, if you are getting landlord references, if it's coming from an agent, then that should hopefully be fine. That's slightly more credible source there. If it is a private landlord, my advice is to check against the landlord registration and make sure that the landlord details they've given you, the name, is matching up to what's actually registered as a landlord, and they're not just giving you their friend that's going to give them a good reference.
Yeah, we've had that in the past, but luckily picked up on it.
Yeah, so it's definitely little tips like this that could save you in the future. Whenever your rental property is in the UK, you're legally required to check all tenants on an application against the UK sanctions list and to report anyone who appears on it if they're applying.
Yeah, and our referencing process picks that up through one way.
Yeah. And if your property is in England, you must also conduct a right to rent check for any non-UK citizens over 18 to confirm that they have the leave to remain for the length of the tenancy.
Yeah, and that's quite important when you're down in England, because you might offer them a tenancy sign, and tenancy agreements are different in England, so you could do fixed terms and things, and you could have somebody entering into a fixed term for whatever it is at the time, and they might not actually legally be able to stay in the country for that length of time. So yeah, the right to rent checks are important when you're in England.
Investing time here is your strongest defence against future problems, such as rent arrears and property damage. It's truly the foundation for a stable tenancy, and peace of mind is priceless.
Yeah, that peace of mind, it is really priceless. It's so much less stress. It's less time worrying, and all for that little bit extra at the beginning. And the referencing and screening at the initial stages is so important. But then you move forward, and then you need to start obviously thinking about, right, I need to write paperwork. We're talking about tenancy agreements and things there. The tenancy agreements come with, in Scotland with the private residential tenancy, come with the easy read notes, and then you've got a whole moving part, you've got all the certificates, and so you've got all that paperwork and the procedures and things that go with it, and they're so important to get right. Especially even things like, even like the tenant's name on the tenancy agreement and things. If you get that wrong at the beginning, it might not be an issue then, but if you come up against something further down the line and you need to have the tenancy agreement as a part of that process or evidence or whatever, and you've got it with a misspelled tenant's name on it or something, that's going to cause you big problems because it's not actually accurate. So yeah, I mean, there's unquestionably plenty of paperwork and processes to go with to get right when you're setting up a tenancy. Some as a legal requirement, some as essential practice, and helps you cover all bases. And like I said there, it does help you if you get to that point of dispute, that you've got all that in place initially, and then you could fall back on your paperwork and confirm what the details of the tenancy and what was agreed, and all that was set out properly at the beginning. That then comes back to first and foremost your tenancy agreement. Now, we are fortunate enough in here in Scotland, we've got the template for the private residential tenancy that has got its mandatory clauses in there that must be used. You can add to the PRT, which is quite good if you want to do certain other things included in there. But the basis of the PRT is there. It's available on the government website. We do have our own version of that, Kerin, that's been checked over and things, and I'm sure a lot of other agents do. But if you're self-managing things, you've got that there to use on the government website. And it does include everything really in there. All the essential things are in there. As I say, you can add extras in there to maybe suit your own property or whatever, and things that you want to have in there, and the tenant's in agreement with that. But for the most part, the PRT is quite comprehensive and does include everything that you need. But if you're in England and in Wales and things as well, you really need to have a tenancy agreement that clearly outlines all your terms, your conditions, the responsibilities. Be really wary of these like cheap off-the-shelf contracts that you could get. I remember, that doesn't make me that old, Kerin, because PRTs were 2017. But I remember you could buy them in W. Smith on the shelf, short assured tenancy agreements, and they were all different versions, and you could download them online. And we've had tenancy agreements come in and over the years, and they've just been one A4 page. And I'm like,
We've seen some questionable ones. Also, some questionable inventories as well. So some landlords like to make it up as they go.
Yeah, and definitely some can be very short and very vague, and just really they're not worth the paper they're written on, to be honest. So out with Scotland and not using the PRT, be very careful of that. Your tenancy agreement is something that you really need to get right. And then you see about inventories there, Kerin. And inventory is so important. It's actually it's part of the private residential tenancy clause. There's a clause in there about the inventory. It is required to accompany it and have a inventory prepared, which is really comprehensive, as I said, and have that schedule and that condition backed up with photography as evidence. The photography needs to be clear. Sometimes we've seen ones in the past and it's just like a blurry little picture, and you really couldn't tell what it was, even if it's got the description next to it. It's not really going to help hold up as evidence. So it really needs to be quite clear, quite precise terminology, and list everything. And that's really including minor things and minor details like power sockets, light switches, all these things. I mean, what's the most common thing that people say to us when they don't think they need an inventory, Kerin?
Oh, it's not furnished.
Yes. It doesn't matter if it's not furnished. The majority of properties we do are unfurnished, and you should really be thinking, right, well, I've got this all decorated, I've got all the woodwork, the skirtings, the flooring, the windows, the units in the kitchen. all of that goes in there. If any of these get damaged and you've no record of how they were presented and handed over to the tenant, then you've no claim. Ultimately.
And listing pictures don't count.
And listing pictures don't count. I remember when we were able to use listing pictures, but it was for a very brief time back when the deposit scheme and things started up. And obviously they've progressed that over the years, quite rightly so. But no, listing pictures don't count anymore because they could have been done weeks, months, years before the tenancy actually even begun. So we can't use them. It needs to be an inventory done either ideally the day before or the day off the tenancy.
You can get away with like 2 days before, but that's really the latest we would kind of leave it. Ideally, you want it done as close to the start of the tenancy, as you've said.
Yeah, and then again, if we're in England, supply your tenants with the latest how to rent guide in England. And if it's the private residential tenancy here in Scotland, you get the tenant information pack and they get that before the tenancy starts alongside the draft of the tenancy agreement and everything as well. That all needs to go out to the tenant. Also include copies of the current and valid energy performance certificate, the gas certificate, the electrical installation certificate, all these safety certificates in the move-in pack. Now, we email these all out to the tenant beforehand, but they are also given in hard copy to the tenant along with a set of their keys and things as well. But it's always good to send that all out before the tenancy begins as well. So, and they've got it digital and hard copy, and that's a really important thing as well. And then deposits, as we talk about, protecting the deposit and the deposit in a deposit scheme that's government approved, and providing your tenant with the details of the scheme provider. I know that we use Safe Deposit Scotland, and they actually contact the tenant and give them their DAN number, which is unique to their tenancy and their deposit. And that all needs to be done within 30 days of receiving the deposit from the tenant. And you can get hefty fines. I think it's up to 3 months deposit. Am I right? Is that right, Kerin? 3 months rent.
It's quite a significant fine that you don't want.
Yeah, if you don't bank that in time and the tenant contests that, then you can be charged up to 3 times the amount of the rental on the property as a fine. So 30 days is more than enough time to be able to do that. If you don't have an account with a government approved deposit scheme, they're very easy to set up, or your letting agent should have one for you to use as well.
And they're free as well, so it's not like you have to pay to be able to set one up in them. And also, obviously, we talk about the 30 days, making sure you bank it in that. Just make sure you bank it as well. So you have some landlords from, obviously, you maybe come across the odd one from a long time ago when deposit schemes weren't really as common practice and they just had it in their bank account. Well, you cannot do that anymore. So just make sure you do have your deposit banked in a deposit protection scheme.
Yeah, and obviously we have client money protection and things as well. So it needs to be done properly, and there is fines associated with not following that process. So I think that's a brief run through what is expected. But meticulous paperwork, as you'll probably agree listening to that, ensures that every aspect of your tenancy is legal. Things are all watertight. You're protecting your interests. You're saving yourself from fines, as we've just said. And it also provides that kind of clear framework to you and also your tenant that this is how things are going to be done. This is the way I operate if you're self-managing, or this is the way my agent operates. And that sets that tone and expectation for the tenancy. And that's not to say that you're kind of coming down hard on the tenant. It's just being very clear, transparent and precise about things, and they will then obviously pick up on, right, okay, this is how things work. And 9 times out of 10 a tenant will want that because it keeps everything right, and it's everything gets done as it should be.
Yeah, obviously we want to talk about smooth check-ins and regular checkups as well here. So again, we all want nice, smooth running tenancies. So the day your tenant moves in is going to set the tone for the entire tenancy. So a smooth handover is crucial for a positive start that creates a good impression and good vibes going forward, rather than the beginning being on a bad note or mistrust. So again, we see teething issues, but ultimately you want to try and eliminate as much of them as possible. So reviewing the inventory to get the tenant to sign every page. Remember to include meter readings and the number of keys you're handing along with replacement costs as well. People lose keys, it happens. So just make sure you've got that noted there. But again, getting your tenant to sign the inventory is key. We obviously provide a disclaimer as well, just they don't always sign it and give it back. So there's a disclaimer there that just says basically they get within the 7 days to review that inventory. If there's anything that they know that's different, to let us know. We can make a record of it. If not, then that's them accepting that obviously it's been, that the inventory is a true reflection of the property. And I mean, with all the photos and description that goes into it, it's kind of hard for it not to be true. So it's good to have that third-party contractor going in, so you are getting that impartial view as well over the inventory.
Yeah, let's try to elaborate on inventories a little bit there. It is very good to have a third-party inventory clerk doing that rather than one of us doing it, because then it kind of then lifts it out. So it's not the agent, it's not the landlord, it's somebody independent, and that does really create a better situation. But the inventory as well, the 7-day thing I think is very important. I remember when we used to do inventories and we would go through them on the day, I mean, this is obviously going back when we first started, on the day of the move in, we would go through them, and it would take so long to do that, and you would need to check through everything and things. I mean, obviously the inventory is presented to the tenant still and obviously explained, but to go through it in a lot more detail, they are allowed 7 days to review it. And if they, and it's quite interesting as well, because they might come back then with some different outlooks on certain areas and things, or how things are put in, and that's fine, and we're happy to possibly alter them or amend them. But then I think that also creates that timeline of communication regarding the inventory as well. So if it comes to the end and something does need claimed against or whatever, we can say, look, this is the inventory, how we handed it over. We done a few amendments because the tenant didn't quite agree, and we were happy to change that. And this was the final version that we both agreed on. And it kind of just reinforces, right, well, the tenant is well aware of this is how it was handed over, and we are in agreement to even make some changes. So if you're at that point of then claiming, it kind of it doesn't leave much room for, speculation on whether that was actually, in fact, the condition it was handed over, because it's been discussed at length and approved and agreed on between everybody.
Yeah, it's obviously a very important document for the end of the tenancy, for the start of the tenancy as well. So it's good to spend the time in making sure it's being done properly, whether that's paying for somebody to come in, or, because I mean, there was a little point where I was doing them and they take a long time to do.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
So especially if you've got, yeah, definitely, and especially if you've got a furnished property. And I mean, if you are a landlord wanting to do it, there are apps out there that will guide you through the process. So it minimises your chances of like missing things that really should be included within the tenancy. But trust me, for the time it takes, just be time to do it.
Yeah, it's a very time-consuming task. Whereas if you've got somebody who's employed and that's what they do, then obviously that's their role and that's what they do, and that just, it brings you back to trying to do everything yourself. It's not feasible when you're trying to, especially if you're trying to run a buy-to-let business. But it's just, your time's so precious, and to try and manage everything yourself. I mean, you're doing all of this setup that we're talking about today and getting the tenancy right. You've also got the management throughout. You've got all these things that are going to take up so much of your time, and unless you are actually looking to have a full-time job, then you really need to outsource the proper people, whether that's your letting agent and your accountant and all these different people that help you do things that specialize in that field, so that you don't have to do it.
Yeah, the help is out there, so it's best to use it.
Yeah.
Save you time. Making sure it's getting done right as well. That's one of the key points there as well. Again, coming back to the move-ins, demonstrating how the heating, hot water and appliances work. That'll obviously be a good start to it. Mainly the heating one. A lot of appliances, it does tend to be common sense, but not everybody. Common sense isn't always common. So it's best to go through these things with your tenants and make sure, just as we say, eliminate any teething issues, making sure the boiler's working, they know how to use it as well. That can be the most common one when a tenant moves in. I don't have heating or hot water, and it's down to user error, because they've not understood how to work the heating controls. And if you are a landlord and considering putting in a new heating system, make sure you have such a nice, clear control on how to use. even I go to do some move-ins and I'm like, how are you meant to work this?
Yeah.
Whereas when my favourite ones are the ones that are actually built into the boiler, and it's like the little clock that's in it, and you can just put the pins in and out for the times that you want it on, and it's literally on, timed, or off. They're the most straightforward ones. And if you are renting out a property, you don't need the fanciest control for it. You just need one that people are going to be able to use. If you've got various people in that property, you need one that's going to be fine for general people to be using, as opposed to one that they're going to have to need the manual.
Yeah, user friendly, definitely. I mean, we've got a few with hives in them, and it could be quite difficult. That's not easy.
Yeah, you just have to be like, just Google it. If you go on YouTube, you'll get a video for it. Which, I mean, YouTube is great. You can get a lot of, obviously, how-tos on that, and especially like if you've got tenants that maybe need to bleed a radiator or top up the pressure on the boiler, we can get the make and model of the boiler, which we would have, and then just obviously be able to find a YouTube video that should relate to that, so the tenant can watch through a step-by-step guide on how to do that. If obviously it's been a while since they've been in, can't remember from the move-in. So it's good to be able to have these things out there, but also supplying user manuals in PDFs or paper form and give your tenants contact numbers for emergencies is obviously key as well.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, the YouTube videos is good. I think we've actually got a few of our own YouTube videos.
Yeah. We have our delightful May has volunteered to do some of our training videos there. So again, we can send them to tenants if they're not sure how to bleed a radiator. We've got one there, and she talks them through how to do it step by step on this video and shows them how to do it as well.
Yeah, it's such a good way to do it.
Yeah. And again, in between tenancies, checking any smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors on the day, provide written confirmation of the test, including whether they all pass, if any servicing is required. So making sure your alarms are working and they're in date as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very important thing. And that's one thing that our inventory clerk makes sure for us as well, that all the smoke alarms are tested and in date, and it's all recorded on the inventory as well.
Yeah, very thorough with it. Which again, it's your tenant safety, so it is a key point there. So the main takeaway with check-ins is that you simply can't do too much in detail. Harmony comes from clarity and encourages your tenant to treat your property with the care that it deserves. So if you care, show your tenant that you're caring. Hopefully it will encourage them to do the same.
Yeah, great point, Kerin. I think that is a really good takeaway from today. I mean, check-ins are so important, and you really can't go into too much detail. Do you know, if you think it's maybe a bit overkill, it's not. Just do it. But then if you are at that stage, you're going to think, well, this is taking too much time. That's why you should outsource, definitely, for a multitude of things. But the check-in process is so important, right from that, getting the property ready and the listing right, straight through to screening people and setting up that tenancy properly, and that whole check-in process as you've just went through there. It could all go, well, it does all go hand in hand to having that really smooth tenancy and having everybody involved really happy with how things are and very clear about how things should be done. And that's the most important things for any happy and seamless process with buy-to-let investment and renting property. So I think I would say to anybody, I mean, if you are setting up a tenancy soon, hopefully if you've listened to that, that's helped. We would love to help anyone who's probably struggling with how to go about doing things in the correct process. Do you know, if it's setting up your tenancy properly, right through to that preparation with the strict legal compliance, and also that clear communication about how things should be done and the expectation of things should be done. We'd be happy to do that with anybody that's looking to get some advice on setting up their tenancy properly. You can contact me direct. My email address is attached to this, and the blog it's richard.cook@fiveproperties.co.uk, or you can speak to one of the amazing lettings team at Five Properties. Anything else, Kerin, to add before we wrap up for this morning?
As we say, the help's out there. There's a lot that goes into it. And I mean, this is just the initial process and actually getting a tenant in. There's obviously a lot more that then goes into on the other side following that move-in as well. So the help is definitely out there. Don't try and struggle through yourself, especially if you've maybe not had the best run with tenants previously. Maybe time to seek what help is out there for you.
Yeah, and if you're interested in anything that we spoke about this morning, you can click through on the link in the post to the vlog that's on our website and have a read through that. And as I say, any further questions, you could reach out to us direct. there's comments here I'm going to go and respond to. If you're watching this on the rerun, still jump in the comments, because we'll either myself or one of the team will aim to respond to you and answer any questions that you may have. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me this morning, Kerin. That was really informative, as always. And we will see you next time for the Saturday morning show.
Yeah, happy Saturday.
Thanks, Kerin. Bye.